Hi, welcome to Prime Recap. A green monster that inhabits the top of a mountain decides to devise an evil plan to ruin Christmas to an entire town in just one night. Today we will recap the story of the 2018 movie, The Grinch. In a remote place, surrounded by mountains and trees, the town of Whoville is inhabited by people who are always in a good mood, especially when the most awaited commemorative date of the whole year arrives. At Christmas, Whoville is completely adorned with garlands, snowmen, and Christmas candy canes, and the Christmas spirit takes over every one of the inhabitants. Not far from the festive area, in the mountains surrounding that place, a green monster inhabits a cave. His name is the Grinch, a green creature that has a grumpy and lazy personality. In that cave, the creature could only count on the presence of his faithful little dog Max. The dog is the only animal that manages to live alongside his master on a daily basis. Even though he is the monster's pet, he ends up performing several daily tasks that his master does not do, such as breakfast, for example. The Grinch wakes up to live another day of his lonely and dull life. In the morning, the monster rejoices because his dog has made his morning meal, but realizes that it was only a bean. The creature feels disbelief when he sees that, after all, he has done enough shopping to survive until the month of January. The Grinch eventually recalls that during the first days of December, he devoured his entire stock of food because he simply felt bored. His plan was not to go to the town of Whoville for Christmas, because he hated the festive period and all those happy people. Realizing that he has no other choices left, the green monster walks down the snow mountain to do his shopping in the city, alongside his faithful companion Max. Upon arriving in Whoville, the creature tries to ignore and not maintain contact with anyone. Walking to the town market, the green monster ends up leaving a trail of his mischief wherever he goes. In the middle of his journey, the Grinch is chased by a Christmas choir of residents. The creature quickly runs to his goal to get rid of those unbearable songs. Once in the establishment, the Grinch also tries to spoil people's day by making fun of everyone. In that same town, Donna lives a life full of challenges and overcoming. She takes care of her 3 children alone. In the morning, her oldest daughter, Cindy, decides to go out on an adventure to deliver her letter to Santa Claus. The girl leaves home and makes her way through the snow, using a float to glide through the city streets. Halfway there, she loses control and falls from a great height, hitting the Grinch. The monster is annoyed by the girl's attitude and gives her a telling off for it. The creature mocks the letter that the little girl wanted to give to Santa Claus, and the Grinch tells her that the good old man is actually a fake, as he has never been seen by anyone, being only a legend. On his way home, the monster spots a guy who thinks he is his friend. The man was decorating his house for Christmas, and when he realizes this, the Grinch tries to pass by without attracting attention, but ends up being hit by an inflatable Christmas doll. Bricklebomb asks if his green friend was okay, but the Grinch asks him why he put so many decorations around the house. The man replies that the mayor of the town has asked everyone to make an effort because Christmas that year will be 3 times as big. That night, the monster found himself pensive on the highest point of the mountain, while watching the lights of the city. The Grinch began to have a strange feeling, that he really should do something against that festival. The next morning, the monster tries to entertain himself by playing his organ, but is disturbed by his dog Max, who is playing a bizarre drum solo. The Grinch finds himself once again bored, but is surprised by a strong earthquake. As he leaves his dwelling, he realizes that Bricklebomb was responsible for that tremor. The Whoville resident was transporting a colossal tree through several balloons. The monster gets even angrier when he sees that scene and promises that that tree will not stand for long. At night, the townspeople head out with various kinds of decorations to the place where the gigantic tree would stand. In the midst of this crowd, Cindy separates from her mother to begin her secret plan to talk directly to Santa Claus. The girl tells her plan to her friend Grouper and tells him that the good old man is the only one who can help her mother. Away from all the brightness, the Grinch is watching Whoville from the top of the mountain, and his strategy is to make that gigantic Christmas tree fall down, and to do this, he has the help of a catapult that will throw a big snowball. However, the Grinch's attack on the city is completely ruined when his contraption malfunctions prematurely. The huge snowball falls into a precipice and Grinch is thrown by his own machine. The town mayor was about to turn on the Christmas lights that decorated the tree. At that moment, the monster hits the pine tree, and it gets tangled in some decorations as it falls struggling inside the tree. Before the mayor could turn on the lights, the Grinch himself hits the button and releases all the Christmas magic for Whoville. That night, the green creature found himself in the middle of his worst nightmare. When he sees all those lights and decorations, he feels anguished and overwhelmed by a bad feeling, and then he remembers his sad trajectory. As a child, the Grinch lived in an orphanage, abandoned by his own parents. He was always alone. With no friends, he never had anyone to talk to. On Christmas Eve, All the children in the orphanage were adopted, except for the Grinch, who remained abandoned and since that day, has decided to walk down a lonely path. The green creature hated it when people gathered around the tree and sang Christmas carols. He was angry at the various dishes of food the locals made. After all, he had never tasted any of it. At the end of the night, in his house, Grinch tells his dog Max that he can't stand the happiness of Christmas anymore and can't stand to see the residents of Whoville happy. For that reason, the green monster says he will put an end to Christmas. The next day, Max wakes up early to take breakfast to his master, but when he gets to his room he realizes that the Grinch is already awake and exercising to begin his plan. Deep in the mountain, the green creature reveals his evil plan to his dog. The Grinch says he intends to steal Christmas from Whoville, because just as Santa Claus brings the joy of Christmas once a year to every town, he himself could manage to destroy the important holiday in just one night. And for this plan to happen, the monster claims that he will be Santa Claus himself, so he can successfully accomplish his goal. In Whoville, Cindy leaves her home early. The little girl rides her bicycle through the icy city streets. On the way, she meets her friend Grouper and they both go to the treehouse to discuss their plan to meet the good old man on Christmas Eve. When they arrive at the place, the duo tries to find a way to contact this mysterious figure that only appears once a year. After discussing and discarding some ideas, Cindy tells Grouper that she has a foolproof plan, but to accomplish it, they will need the whole class. That same night, she gathers all her friends in a town square. The girl says that she has helped her friends many times and now they should all reward her, and that the only way to talk to Santa Claus is to arrest him. While Cindy was developing her bizarre plan to have a conversation with the Santa Claus, the Grinch kept researching in his house some important information about the holiday. The monster has his sights set on becoming the Santa Claus who will steal the joy of Christmas. After conducting a thorough study of the life of the good old man, the Grinch decides that the first step in becoming this figure that everyone acclaims so highly is to get the reindeer needed to pull his sleigh. The next morning, the green monster goes on an adventure with his dog Max in search of reindeer. The creature tells his dog that he has something that will save him a lot of time in this search. It was a screech that imitates the sound of a reindeer in mating season. In this way, by using this object, several reindeer would come towards him without any effort. Grinch blows the object, but only a small mountain goat arrives on the scene. The creature is disappointed to see the ridiculous result of his plan. The goat that arrived on the scene was short in stature, but its shriek possessed gigantic strength. The green creature is annoyed by this and continues walking towards its goal. After going through bitter cold in freezing storms, the Grinch finally found a valley where several reindeer lived. The monster finally rejoices that he has managed to complete the first stage. However, that small goat that he had encountered shortly before arrives on the scene. With a loud screech, the creature scares all the animals away, leaving only one reindeer roaming around. The Grinch is not shaken and tells his dog Max that he will make his plan happen even if it is only by using a reindeer. The monster carefully approaches the animal. His intention at that moment is to capture it at any cost. The green creature hides in the snow, but a small part of its hair sticks out. When the reindeer notices the thing, he imagines it could be some kind of grass. As he tries to chew on it, he is startled by the monster's scream of pain. The reindeer flees in desperation, dragging Grinch along the way. The monster manages to dodge a few obstacles, but in the end, he crashes into a tree, fainting instantly. After a few minutes, the green creature is woken up with several licks on his face. And so the monster manages to complete the first part of his plan. That night, the Grinch makes his way to Bricklebaum's house. His next goal is to steal the sleigh that is being used as a decoration. The Grinch asks his dog Max and Fred, his new reindeer, to wait in the back of the house. The monster tries to use a ladder that was nearby to climb up to the place, but realizes that he will have to do this very carefully, because Bricklebaum had a guard dog. As he climbs up the ladder, he realizes that it was sinking into the snow. With all that noise, the watchdog wakes up from his sleep and quickly begins to chase the decoration thief. The Grinch ends up climbing all over the house through the decorations themselves and finally manages to get to the sled, but just as he was about to steal it, the guard dog arrives on the scene and chases him again. In the midst of all this mess, the monster manages to escape and takes the sled along with his companions until he reaches his home. Grinch celebrates the success of the mission. That night, Fred and Max sleep with their owner, and the green creature claims that it is just a short time before Whoville's Christmas is completely over. The next morning, the Grinch asks Max to observe several points in the city to help with his strategy. The monster equips a kind of glider capable of taking his dog to the city and transmitting the images in real time. Max starts off doing a good job with his study. But everything goes wrong when the dog's instinct speaks louder. Max spots a sausage store and quickly flies to the place to devour the treats. However, the propellers of his glider are damaged when they collide with the sausages. The dog flies wildly through the city skies and returns at high speed toward the Grinch. The two collide with a heavy impact, but the Grinch feels satisfied that he has managed to map the entire place. In his cave, the Grinch trains Max and Fred not to fail on mission day. They could not be charmed by the decorations, let alone the typical food of the festival. After this, the monster traces his route of chaos through Whoville on his model. Meanwhile, Cindy and her friends are searching for a more efficient way to trap Santa Claus. Grouper ends up being the guinea pig to test the prototype of the trap, but in the end they all realize they will have to work harder. On the frozen mountain, the Grinch shows his faithful companions the new changes he has made to the sleigh. Now the machine was ready to take the new villain of Christmas, his dog Max, and finally, to resist the high speed that Fred could reach. The group decides to do a test run before the mission day. Fred runs at high speed and manages to make the sled reach an impressive speed, and Grinch was still able to control the steering even in those conditions. The trio was speeding down the forest path when they are caught by surprise by a frozen lake. The monster ends up losing control for a few seconds, but manages to keep going. Shortly after, two other reindeer appear among the trees. The green creature tries to chase them away, because he already has the necessary reindeer to do all the work. However, the two animals are part of Fred's family. The Grinch understands that those two were probably the wife and child of his new friend. Upon understanding this, the monster releases Fred to return to live with his family. He believes that this would be the best decision, even if it contradicts his way of thinking. Christmas Eve arrives and the Grinch is hard at work preparing for his mission. When Max arrives at the cave, he is impressed by the variety of trinkets his master has developed. The monster worked all night and the equipment to destroy Christmas in Whoville was finally ready. The last part of his plan is to create the Santa Claus-themed outfit. That way he would not be recognized by anyone and everyone would believe that the good old man himself had ruined Christmas. During the eve of the holiday, the inhabitants of Whoville were euphoric about the arrival of the big day. As night fell, the citizens returned to their homes in anticipation of waking up the next day celebrating with the whole family. On top of the icy mountain, the Grinch encourages Max, stating that the little dog has never let him down and at no time left him alone. For this reason, the dog would play the role of the reindeer that would carry the sleigh to town. Max feels confident and accepts his new mission. The monster gives the start order, but as he tries to run, the dog sinks into the snow. Still, Max does not give up. He returns to the surface and begins to take the sled to Whoville. The Grinch already knew the exact route he was going to take while in the city. He uses the trinkets he created and with this his job is made extremely easy. Upon entering the houses, the monster uses all his skills to steal the decorations, gifts, and even food. As the night wore on, the Grinch cleaned out all the houses. The city that once glowed with fluorescent brightness, now falls into the darkness of night. Checking his house counter, he realizes that there is only one house left to steal Christmas. It was the house of Donna and her daughter Cindy. The monster enters through the chimney without any problem, but when he gets to the living room he finds a beautifully decorated cookie. He can't resist the temptation and decides to have a quick snack to finish that night. However, when he takes the cookie, a trap is activated. The fake Santa Claus is successfully captured. The little girl wakes up to the noise and quickly goes to find out what happened. When she arrives on the scene, she can't believe she finally captured the old man. Cindy frees the monster from its chains and, not suspecting anything, tells Santa her Christmas wish. The little girl says that her mother works a lot and therefore always looks tired, so she asks the good old man to help her. The Grinch is extremely confused by the whole situation. Feelings and sensations that he had never felt before are awakened after hearing the little girl's words. He feels reflective for a moment and tells the little girl to go back to sleep. Cindy feels that she has succeeded in completing her goal, and with a smile on her face she goes back to sleep. After this, the monster takes all the Christmas decorations from the little girl's house and returns to his cave with the plan successfully completed. Christmas morning arrives in Whoville. However, all the residents are wondering what has happened to the town. The decorations, trees, and presents have been stolen without anyone noticing. Cindy, when faced with that scene, wonders what really happened. The little girl tells her mother that it's entirely her fault, because she managed to capture Santa Claus and he probably must have been furious. Her mother comforts her by telling her that the person responsible for this act has only stolen objects, but has not managed to steal Christmas in any way. At the top of the mountain, the Grinch was about to throw all the things he stole over the cliff. However, he hears a song coming from the town. After observing, he realizes that the residents of Whoville were happy with a smile on their faces as they sang, forming a big circle. At that moment, the Grinch tries to hear the melody. He closes his eyes and for the first time feels his heartbeat with emotion. The monster is happy and quickly decides to return all the stolen items. But his sled, which was already too heavy, ends up falling from the top of the mountain. In an attempt to rescue it, the monster jumps in to retrieve all the objects. He uses one of his devices and shoots a hook to secure the sled. However, the weight was so great that the tip of the mountain was about to break off. At that instant, Fred emerges with his family to rescue his old friend. He snags the hook in his teeth and pulls the sled back up the mountain. With the help of Max and his family, Fred brings the Grinch back safely. The monster is surprised to find his old companion again, but he had no time to lose and quickly sets off at high speed to return all the stolen items from Whoville. The monster announces his arrival in town by blowing a trumpet so that everyone could hear. In the central square, he confesses that he was responsible for making the terrible mistake of stealing all the Christmas presents and decorations. Grinch tells everyone that he felt terrible about doing this. He apologizes to Cindy and without saying another word, goes back to his lonely life in the cave. That morning, the monster presents his dog Max with a new toy. The dog is overjoyed to receive something so special. This only makes the admiration and respect he feels for his master even stronger. In the morning, the Grinch hears his doorbell ringing, and when he opens the door he realizes that it was the little girl he had talked to the night before. She tells the monster that he is invited to join her for Christmas dinner. When asking the reason for the invitation, she replies that the Grinch lives very lonely and it would be nice to be reunited at least once. The green creature is thoughtful about that answer, and that night he goes to the town of Whoville. The Grinch was accompanied by his dog Max. However, he was afraid to get together with the townspeople. After all, he was still feeling extremely guilty about what had happened. Nevertheless, the monster rings the doorbell of Cindy's house, and is very well received by all the residents. Bricklebaum was incredulous at that scene, for his great friend was celebrating with everyone. The monster tries to make up for his evil deeds by helping with some of the chores at Christmas dinner. At the table with everyone around him, the Grinch reveals that he never hated Christmas, but he hated the feeling of loneliness. He thanks everyone and especially Cindy, who was largely responsible for changing his arrogant and selfish thinking. On that special night, the Grinch was celebrating for the first time the holiday that marked his childhood. Not far away, the little goat ends that historic day with a scream that marks the beginning of a friendship between the fearsome monster that inhabited the mountains and the welcoming residents of the town of Whoville. So what did you think of this movie? Leave it in the comments below. And if you liked the video, please like and subscribe for more movie recaps. See you next time.